Sporking podcast presents The Beatles, Early Years, a retrospective. Starring Sporking podcast, Tom Corner's tune, the 70s rock fan.
You did it, Sporking.
The Beatles. Welcome one, welcome all. It is WSNP, your Sporking network. We are the number one in your heart, last on the YouTube Beatles stream. I'd like to apologize to anybody that was at the beginning. I realized I screwed up and the destination, because I created this 2 days ago, I forgot to get the destination for Rumble today because you have to do it within 24 hours. So I screwed up. So we're not on Rumble tonight. And I know actually people, that's like the one where people have been watching us, which I was kind of shocked. We had a whopping 113 people watch us last week on Rumble. So
That's only because I wasn't there.
Yeah, that is not true, sir. That is not true. And please introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are and where you're from.
Good evening, everybody. I am Brian, that's 70s and I am from Oz. Actually, no, I'm not from Oz. That would be Roger from Oz, which was a Who joke for anyone who knows the Who. And I'm live in the prairies of Canada, but I'm from Scotland, near England, where the Beatles came from.
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah, from Liverpool.
He lived on the same, continent, island. Island?
It's an island, yes.
Island?
I have stood very near to actual physical Beatles.
Yeah.
I've shared almost the same air as them, but never actually.
I know that the Time Prophet's mom met every single one of the Beatles. I think that was the Time Prophet.
Alas, it never happened. There was one opportunity. I thought it was going to happen. I thought I would meet Paul, and it didn't happen. So
yeah, I was going to meet John Lennon back in 1980 outside of the... No, forget it. That's a bad joke. That's a bad joke.
You were on your way to meet him.
Yeah. I just, hey, Pink Pam, thank you for being here. Lovely human being. Got to meet her down in Florida. They, Rogue Attractions and her do awesome live streams of park stuff and for geeks and gamers. So please make sure to follow her here. She has a great Instagram. Beautiful pictures. Beautiful dimples. I mean,
beautiful plumage.
Beautiful
plumage.
Yes, the bloomage.
Plumage.
Hello, lovely Sherry.
Hey, Sherry.
Liam Neeson's chin. I have to say this one got me good. It's an AI that does it, and it sounds exactly like, hey, we took out all the brown M&Ms.
I thought you were doing it.
No, that's an AI.
I'm disappointed now. I am so disappointed.
It's an AI, and even my outro with my channel members, which you could become at anytime, anyone. It's AI too, but it's me. MrGrantGregory scares me with that ability he has with the AI. I like to thank Machini Draws for becoming a sponsor. I think he became one last week. I think Monkey Jeebus also became a sponsor last week, but after the show. So thank you guys. We're starting to grow again. We're probably a quarter away from, we got a quarter away. We're 3/4 away from where we were. We're at about 25 or 26 channel members. So feel free. Become a channel member. I promise at some point we will be doing channel stuff. We might even do one of these Beatles streams, just channel members, where we talk about the Paul controversy and a couple of things after the Beatles. I thought that might be fun when we're done with the Beatles, the decade of the Beatles. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here tonight. So yeah, this is a small watch show on YouTube, bigger on Rumble, which blows my mind. But It's a lot of fun, so have fun in the chat. Let us know any stories, any info you guys know about the Beatles. I have my encyclopedia next to me. When you weren't here, thank God I had DJ Odyssey and Rob Shlomo, or Robot Shlomo, Rob, here, because they are like you. I mean, it's just unbelievable the
Handsome and
knowledge
sexy.
you guys have.
They're like me, handsome and sexy.
It is true, sir. It was okay. So Matthew Street, all right.
Yes.
There's a band called Matthew Sweet, I think, from the
No,
90s.
it's not a band. It's a person. He's a person.
Oh, is he a person?
Sweet. Matthew Sweet is a guy.
I always
One
thought
guy.
he took a play on that name. Oh shit.
No, I think that's his name, Matthew Sweet. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's he's not a small guy, so you could call him a band, but he might take that the wrong way.
He's a large fella.
He's a large fella.
fella.
He's a big cuddly fella, but yeah, he's one of my favorite artists, Matthew
He wa-
Sweet. He does brilliant. He did 3 albums of covers.
Oh, really?
Under the Covers, and they're all 60s and 70s and covers of stuff like
I like
including
this
Beatles.
stuff in the 90s. There's also another dude. Oh God. I'll have to get his name. He did a cover of Plastic Trees from Radiohead, and it is the most beautiful song. And he was like a one-hit wonder. I know what you're doing. I've been here before. If anybody knows what I just did and the person, let us know.
So he did a cover of Fake Plastic Trees.
Yeah. Oh my God. Gorgeous. And you can't find it. It's hard to find. At least maybe now. Okay, maybe now it's not as hard. But I know 10 years ago, like I found one like MP3 or whatever they were back then, and I was like, "Oh my God, I found it!" And then someone lost my iPod for me.
Yeah, Liam Neeson's tune. Yes, he was, or indeed is, or maybe still is married to one of the Bangles, Susanna Hoffs. She's on the Under the Covers albums as well. I don't know if they're still.
Wait a minute, she's
married.
the lead singer, right?
Yeah, so they were a couple for many years. They may still be, for all I know. But they make these great albums together, covers called Under the Covers.
Really, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
I love Spotify for that reason. Look at that. Wasn't he married to the girl from the Bengals?
Yeah, Susanna Hoff. So just you mentioned covers of Radiohead songs. You must go on YouTube and watch from Coachella Prince doing Creep.
Really?
It is awesome.
Does he rip into a guitar solo at all?
Oh yeah.
Most underrated guitar player ever.
Destroys it on the guitar. It's brilliant.
Dude,
so
he is. He's amazing.
Oh yeah, just look at that While My Guitar Gently Weeps that he did with Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne and Danny Harrison.
Yep. And just the smile he has on his face.
Dude, but yeah, go look up Prince at Coachella Creep, and it's a cover of Radiohead's Creep. It's brilliant.
Oh, we'll have to check it out.
Yeah,
dude.
Awesome.
I have not. While My Guitar Gently Sleeps. First of all, Harrison's son looks so much like him. And it was nice to see him just playing some, rhythm guitar behind them. But man, Prince is he was one of my favorites. Like, I didn't follow him as much as I like. To say one of my favorites is weird because I loved his 80s stuff. His 90s stuff, I was like, but his 80s stuff was just unbelievable. But he, just for his pure talent, I consider him one of the best.
I always wish he'd made a little bit more out of his guitar playing. He was very understated about it. He didn't really but he was a phenomenal guitar player, and he should have made more of that. And my favorite Prince album is the kind of the Beatle-y one, Raspberry with Raspberry Beret on it. Yep. Yeah, that album.
Even that video is kind of Beatle-ish, He uses like a very early green screen type thing. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, Paisley Park and all that stuff is really good. But yeah, Jeff Healey, the Canadian guitar player, sadly passed away many years ago. Blind Canadian. Yeah, he'd well, the thing with his eyes was he had really bad cancer in the end.
Oh shit!
It was pretty bad. Killed him in the end. That's what made him.
He sang a song like Angel or something like that. I remember him.
Yeah.
Talented. He was in Roadhouse. Come on.
He's the guy in Roadhouse. Yeah. He did a great While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But I still think that Prince live version was just awesome.
Yeah. Tom Ellis, is that the guy who plays Lucifer?
I never watched it.
Yeah. Becky, I hope everything's good with you, Becky. I know recently I saw something being passed around. If you have a GoFundMe or something, please share it. Feel free. Prayers and all that. And I'm sorry that I haven't been keeping up. It's just been so crazy. Everybody except for my wife in the house has had strep in this last week.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I gave it to all the kids. It was awesome.
So you've had a real strap on.
Yeah, not that. I hope not. All right, let's start.
Sorry,
it out,
I couldn't
man.
resist that.
No, please don't you dare ever apologize for a good joke. Well, the only thing off limits with me is my kids.
Well,
That's
of
it.
course.
Anything else?
Should be
you can
off
say
limits
anything
for
with me.
everybody.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. That's how it should be.
Mm.
Yep, he is. Oh.
But we could do a whole show, and we probably will one day, on Beatles covers, because there's been thousands of Beatles cover versions, and
Ooh, we
there
do
are
like the
good
top
bad-
10.
They're good. Yeah, I mean, I played one the other day on my Monday show, which was about Southern rock.
Yeah.
Dwayne Allman on Wilson Pickett's cover of "Hey Jude."
Oh yeah.
It's with the Muscle Shoals horns, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just awesome.
Yeah. What a really cool version of that song.
Yeah, that's possibly the best.
Yeah. Who hasn't done a Beatles cover? I mean, it's just, they are the end all be all. To me, it goes Elvis. Maybe it goes, okay, for me, because my mom, I'm half, mostly like half Sicilian. So in my mom, it's like, it goes, the boss, or I was going to say the boss, the chairman of the board. Okay. Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra. Then it goes Elvis. And then it goes the beat. Like each one had an era, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and then kind of coming back in the 60s and 70s was Frank Sinatra again. But they did something different, man.
It's funny you should talk about that, because my good lady wife has just been reading, or is in the process of reading, that Bob Dylan book about songs that's out recently, and one whole section of that is about Strangers in the Night. So she was reading the stuff about that song to me. It's an incredibly contentious song, because the guy that wrote it basically got ripped off. And so on and so on. But there he was in the middle of, that was a number one hit in the middle of Stones, the Beatles,
right,
British Invasion, right, whatever. Yeah.
He transcended eras. He did his own thing, and people loved him. And even younger people, even people that were hippies, had something about Frank Sinatra's, just his presence, because he went from the crooner type to like the old, raspy, got a drink in his hand type. Like he defined that to me. Like the Michael Bublé, there would be no Michael Bublé. There'd be no Harry Connick Jr. without like a Frank Sinatra. They'd be something different. I'm not saying they wouldn't be famous. They'd just be something different.
Yeah, and as you say, there's this every 10 years or so, or every generation, there's the guy, or the act that defines that era. And Frank was one, and Elvis was another, and the Beatles were another. If 200 years from now, when you look back in the 20th century, those will still be the names that are getting talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my opinion, I mean. Hopefully I'll be here to confirm that.
Yeah, me too, right?
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. Tina beat me to it. I was just about to see. Look, I even copied and pasted, so I'm putting it back in there too. But yeah, Becky, her mom, they've been going through some tough times. Her mom's disabled. I mean, it's in there. That's the only reason I'm saying this. Her mom has lupus, epilepsy, and heart issues. All they're trying to do is raise $500, and they're at $300. And I wish my YouTube channel was going, like I never got demonetized, because I would totally kill the rest of that. But people like Jane Theory and others have donated. So please, guys, there have been 3 donations for $100. She's trying to reach only 500. Which I think she lowballed herself. So I think you should start another one and go a little bit higher too. And we'll really push that one too, Becky. But please, let's make sure we get it. It's a beautiful picture of 2 people you could tell that love each other. So let's help them out, okay? All right. Let's get back to the Beatles, though. That's what we are here for. And we got 10 people watching. Thank you, guys.
What?
Sorry.
I thought we were doing the Hollies. Shit.
What's that?
I was prepping for the Hollies. I thought we were doing the Hollies.
Oh, shit.
You never mentioned the Beatles.
Something about the Beatles, I was told. I don't know.
That's another great song. There's a song called Something About the Beatles by the group The Corgis.
I know the Corgis.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Stackridge, who were also Stackridge.
Yeah.
It was this same. They did this fantastic song called "Something About the Beatles." It's one
Yeah.
of the best songs about the Beatles, in my opinion.
Okay.
And
I used was it it wasn't the Sex Pistols, it was oh god. Who sang the song with the fake Beatlemania?
Phony Beatlemania. Well, that was
Yeah.
the Clash.
The Clash.
London Calling.
London Calling, man.
Yeah.
And I remember as a little kid I got upset with that.
Yeah, they did.
But I
say-
understood now what they meant.
Yeah, they were. I understood what they meant, but the first thing that happened when they became well known was that when they met all these guys was they told them how much they loved them. You know, so all these bands that they dissed. But anyway,
Right. Exactly. I mean, he was another lost
Joe
died too
Strummer.
young, Joe Strummer.
yeah.
I loved him. But you know what happened on January 11th, 1963? Please Please Me and Ask Me Why were released. And this is beginning. So some
The
will say
single,
right.
please me. Yeah.
Right, the single. Yes, I'm sorry, the single. And actually,
No,
really,
I just clarifying for the audience.
no, and that's why I love you for it, dude. Don't ever take. You just keep talking. I'm just yeah. He's right.
On that same day, though, they recorded the bulk of the rest of the tracks for the first album. It was all happening right in that day, those few days.
Well, no, that was a month later. That was on February 11th.
Oh, I'm thinking February. Sorry, I'm
But you're
thinking
right.
February.
I mean, dude, you're a goddamn encyclopedia. So on the 11th of January,
January,
that was
yeah.
released. But on February 7th, Please Please Me and Ask Me Why was released by VJ Records, which I'm guessing is United States.
That's in the US. That was George
Okay.
Martin attempting to get anybody to release this stuff they'd recorded in America because Capitol wouldn't do it. Even though EMI owned them and EMI were the Beatles record company, the Capitol wanted nothing to do with it. So he had to get these little labels like VJ to try and release stuff.
Right.
And to be fair, Love Me Do had been a minor hit single in the late 1962 in the UK. It wasn't like it was massive. So when Please Please Me was released in January the 11th, it could have died. I mean,
Right.
it may have done nothing. Who knows?
Right. And it's a pivotal point. I mean, it's one of the most pivotal points in rock history. Some will say 1967 or 65, were the best years for the Beatles. In 65, yes. I mean, look at that year. I can't wait till we get to that. But to me, 63 is the most important year for the Beatles because everything fell in line and just they put out the right music at the right time where 65 would have never happened if 63 didn't happen. I think it's the most pivotal year of their career, 65 being the best year with what they released that year.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I do love that 65, 66 period. Particularly, I mean, we'll get to it in future shows.
Yep.
But Revolver is my favorite album.
What a great album, man.
Yeah.
What
just
a great.
at their peak.
They really are. And people don't, I'm sorry, people don't realize that. Also, my favorite Beatles song is released in 65, Help. It wasn't when I was younger, but listening to the lyrics now and realizing what John was going through, it just hits me so hard, and just how, when I was a younger man, it just, it gets me in the feels, man.
And yet he's only, by then, I know
26?
we're jumping ahead, he's only like 25, 26,
Yeah,
but he's already
24
talking
maybe?
about when I was younger, so much younger.
So much younger than today.
But yeah, I guess we'll get to all that for sure. But Please Please Me, the single you released in the UK, it's been the subject of argument ever since whether it reached number one in the UK or not, because there was multiple record charts.
Okay.
There was the New Musical Express chart. There was the record retailer chart, which evolved into what became the UK singles chart when the BBC adopted it. But at that point, there was like 3 or 4 different charts, depending on which publication you read. In one of them, new NME and Melody Maker, it got to number 1. In the record retailer, it only got to number 2.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, so that's why they didn't include it on the One anthology, because in Britain it was officially deemed retrospectively that it never made it to number 1. So.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. Getting back, talking about 63, which is amazing to me. It never would have reached number 1 because it's such a good tune. But there's a story from Andy Lothian. He was a Scottish
Lothian.
concert promoter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said the first time he brought the Beatles up to Glasgow, it was January of 63, and only 15 people showed up. Can you imagine that? Only 15 people showed up. And he said the next time he brought them to Glasgow, it was October 5th, and they had the #1 album and 3 #1 singles, and he said it was like a hurricane blew into town. That's how many people wanted to see them.
Yeah,
that just goes to show you what happened this year.
And that's where you start to see those photographs of policemen with their hats askew, holding back screaming crowds.
Right.
It all started in those tours later in 62. But in this point in 62, they were still kind of unknown, and they were out on tour when this album came out, on a package tour. They had all these package tours then, and it was singer Helen Reddy was the headliner, not the Beatles. They were like third on the bill, or fourth on the bill. But as the Please Please Me became a bigger hit, they started to get promoted higher up the bill until at the end of the tour, poor Helen Reddy was demoted.
And they showed that with like Elvis, the same thing. He started as the opening act, and by the end he took over when the carnival, when he was just kind of a local celebrity. It's something that just goes to show you, like, talent, it rises to the top.
The promoters and their ilk are not going to deny gravity.
Right.
So, hey, wait a minute, these guys are #1. Shit, let's get them into the top of the bill. Sorry, Helen, you're getting demoted.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, being that person that has to be like, hey, sorry.
I think, to be fair, they all got along, apparently, on these big package tours with like 8 acts. They all got along pretty well. I mean, they became really good friends with Helen Reddy, who's, just a solo female artist.
Right.
She had a couple of hits, and then she actually had some hits in the 70s. She kind of, as a mature artist, she was just a kid when she headlined that tour. So they got on really well with her. They were all really friendly, But yeah, these images, that wasn't happening in early 63, but by October, everywhere they went, you would get that.
That's awesome. Hey, man, I apologize. Let me step away for a minute. Could you mind trying to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my son's crying and my wife's not home yet, so I'll be right back.
So Please Please Me as a single had an interesting development, because when they originally recorded it with George Martin in like January, late December, early January of 63, late December 62, early January 63, John Lennon, who pretty much, it was his song, had written it as a really slow ballad almost. And in the end, the final released version was like 5 times faster and really up tempo and with a pulsating bass line and everything. But he'd done it, and John brought it in as this slow thing, almost like he'd patterned it on a Bing Crosby song that he liked, and I can't remember the name of the song. Yeah, I mean, anyway, but there was a line in it about please lend a little ear to my pleas, Pleas, which fascinated John Lennon, whatever song, Bing Crosby song that was. And he had the double use, like a pun on the word please with 2 different spellings, but he liked that because John and all the Beatles, but John loved that wordplay. So they loved the Spike Milligan comedy and the Goon Show, which was all full of puns and that kind of wordplay. So he wanted to have the repetition of please, please me. He loved that. I mean, George Martin didn't, I think, particularly mind that, but he didn't like the fact it was brought as this slow dirge-like song, like please, please me. It was all real terrible. So he said, no, that's got to be faster. You're going to put that, it's got to go up and put the bass, more bass in it. And no harmonies originally on it. The original version was terrible.
Right.
So George said, I think you can do a bit better.
Right. Can you imagine, George? I mean, what an amazing artist he was. Because I consider it art what he does. I mean, he's a composer.
And there's a example of the right producer being important, because if that had been just any other hack at EMI or any other big recording studio that label then who didn't really care, just to them it was get these guys down, churn that record out.
Yep.
He didn't. George Martin wanted them to be as good as they could be,
right?
And because he was such a great musician himself. I think you can do better, boys. That's not very good. And he would say no. He was one of those guys who could say no to them.
Right.
Which was rare.
And they respected him. I mean,
yeah. Well, it was actually but interestingly enough, they could say no to him too, which was important because after Love Me Do, he said, well, that song was okay, but we need better songs. So he'd gone out through his connections in the business and he'd brought the Beatles a song called How Do You Do It? How do you do what you do to me? Anyway, so he brought them this song written by Mitch Murray, professional songwriter, and he gave it to them and they went, what the fuck is this? And they'd really, really, really hated it, and they insisted they record it as well as their own, when it was just Please Please Me. And so they grudgingly did it, and that's the one you can hear on Anthology.
Yeah,
and they're going through the motions. John's singing, "How do you do what you do?" It's like
you can tell he's just he's mailing it in.
They hated it, and they said no, so they could say no to him too. But he said, "I'm only going to not release this if you come up with something better." And that's where Please Please Me came in once they polished up.
Right, I'll agree with this right here, that the early George Martin stuff definitely made their early stuff sound timeless, but I believe it was their musical ability in mid 65 and on that made them sound timeless, because they would do something that's weird. Like one sound would sound R&B coming from, let's say, John and George, but yet with the bass line and the drums it'll sound more rock. Like they were able to mix music in a way that if it came out today, some of their songs, I believe, would still be like Ticket to Ride, one of the best songs ever. I'm sorry. Like that could still be maybe updated a little bit, but it doesn't really need to be touched.
And it doesn't. And the part of that was the part of it was George Martin, part of it was Abbey Road Studios, Studio 2, and the great engineers like Jeff Emmerich and guys like that. They had the best possible sound they could get. And they took the time to get it by that time. They could take as long as they wanted. But Ticket to Ride, I mean, that jangly guitar, Rickenbacker guitar thing, the sound that launched a million bands. If you think about
it, agree,
they did
man.
it first.
I agree. And they did it first.
Although they weren't the only band from Liverpool that loved the Rickenbackers, because the Searchers did too.
Right, but they were the most famous at the time.
Needles and Pins and all that stuff was all that Rickenbacker sound, but the Beatles loved the Rickenbackers, and that just perfectly showed that off.
Yeah. If you listen to the version on Anthology album, you can hear very recognizable 60s musical sounds. When they actually got to the final version, they did away with the 60s tropes. Yes. And you're absolutely right, man. I'm trying to say it was all George Martin in the beginning personally. And then the guys, they were so, they wanted to learn. By 65, Martin said it himself, 65, 66, towards the end, he would sometimes just sit back and they would just run the show and he would give them advice. But 65, it was them as a well-oiled machine, working well together. But like you said, the engineers and other guys, everybody put in something.
Yeah, I think they all saw an opportunity to do something very early on, that we could do something different here. We're not just going to churn out another pop record.
Right.
We're going to try and start doing something different. And when the Beatles, when they found out there was a 4-track machine sitting in the basement at EMI, they went and got it. Yeah. And said, we're going to use this.
That's awesome.
Sitting languishing in the basement, and they went and liberated it.
That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah,
it's so
that's
awesome.
A great story. What you mean we've got a 4-track machine? Oh, we're testing it. The engineers are testing it. For how long? Well, it could be months. Screw that.
Yeah, let's go get it. So in February, like we were saying, February 11th, they recorded the remaining 10 tracks for Please Please Me. February 18th, Love Me Do, with Ringo Starr on the drums. And P.S. I love you. Released in Canada, only 170 copies are sold.
Imagine if you had one.
Oh my God!
Every time I go to a thrift store or an old, dusty old antique place, I'm always looking through the 7-inch singles and the albums just in case.
You got to find like some old ladies who have any like a yard sale. You know?
Yeah, I mean, somebody that just doesn't know what they've got. Here's a pile of old junk. That's the only way you're going to get one unless you pay a fortune, I guess.
Yep.
But imagine that 117, did you say? 117 copies.
170 copies.
Well, there's loads of them then.
Yeah. That extra, 60 some.
Because people, when people say, there's Beatles had sold so many millions of records, there's nothing collectible or rare. There's a lot of rare shit out there.
Yeah. I mean, there's misprints. There's just crazy shit you can find. And we could do something on that too.
Oh yeah.
Beatles, most valuable Beatles collectibles.
Yeah. So I think I think it was pretty quick that it got to number 1 or 2, as they say in the UK. Like by the time they were back in the studio in February recording the rest of, or doing most of the recording for the album, it was already at the top of the charts. So
yeah.
They had a bona fide hit by February, like not just a number 17, just kind of scrapes in hit, an actual, okay, who are these guys?
Yeah. Let's want to listen to them. That's crazy. When I was a young musician recording on 4 tracks at home, I learned how to bounce tracks from reading books about the Beatles sessions.
Yeah.
And that was in the 80s.
I know. And to think that's what they had to do and do it without loss of fidelity of the existing tracks. They did. They worked miracles with very little.
No.
It's still impressive to me how they did it. And that's why I love this book that we mentioned every week, the complete Beatles recording sessions by Mark Lewis and the Bible, every session, every song, how they did what they did. It's like reading an unfolding detective novel.
Yeah, that's so cool.
How they discovered how to make modern rock records. It's
so cool.
It's quite something.
So another big thing that happened because they played 1 or 2 shows during this time. Montfort Hall,
the Montfort Hall in Leicester. Yeah,
right, which is a beautiful looking.
Yeah,
from the outside at least.
Most gigs in the UK in those days would be 2 things. They'd either be in a ballroom, like a club or ballroom or dance hall, or they'd be in those kind of theatres, which are probably like 1,500, 2,000 seaters, which would normally have plays in them. Some of them were cinemas as well. So there was no 10,000 seat arenas or whatever then. So you'd either be on the ballroom circuit or you'd be on the theater circuit.
Ooh, they were moving up.
So they'd moved up, yeah.
And just a year or 2 later, Shea Stadium.
Well, that's why I've got the hat on.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's awesome. So in April,
I was there, not at the concert.
I was gonna say,
although I was at the City Field one when Paul opened it. But
I was gonna say I've been to Shea. So April 8th, 1963, Julian Lennon is born. Bless his heart. Bless his heart.
The poor bugger.
He looks just like his dad, man.
I know. I like Julian, and it's been an interesting journey for him because
amen to that.
When Sean was born in the Yoko era, Julian kind of took a back seat. I think he'd taken a lot of a back seat over the years, but
he did.
So he's had a lot of stories to tell of having to buy stuff that is belonged to his dad at auctions to get it,
and being kind of pushed out on money that I believe was his. That's another sad. You know what I do love? I think we brought it up before. It's called Lennon at 80. Sean Lennon does a podcast, and him and his brother talking.
Like Sean.
Oh, I do too. I have
like
nothing.
Sean.
He's just a kid, He's a kid. Well, probably
I
about
like
my
Sean.
age.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah, and they do. It's like listening to these 2 guys talk about their dad, and it almost seems like they haven't really done that before as much as you would think, and it's almost like a session, like a therapy session, It's really cool.
By the
podcast
sort
to
of
listen to.
mid to late 70s, I don't think Julian spent any significant time with his father for various reasons.
Mhm.
And I mean, to be fair, Cynthia had remarried by then, and he had step siblings and
Right.
or half siblings. And John was so tied up with Yoko and Sean that I don't think he was as left out as he sometimes claims, but he wasn't a major component to his father's life,
right?
Although before
even
John,
more after the Beatles.
Yeah, I mean, John was talking about when he was killed, before he was killed, of spending more time in the UK and with his family over there, and that would have meant Julian too, you know. So, but families, just split up families are hard to. Yeah, we weren't there. I guess we shouldn't judge any of them. But
No. I mean, first of all, artists are different people. He lived a life that we can never understand. And even though as a parent, you're like, God, how can you do that? I mean, the man he had his demons, he had his rebirths, you know, and it seemed like he was 40 years old. He was just getting into like, okay, like I'm changing my life. I'm going to spend more time with, you know, my kids, and some asshole decides to take it away, you know, and that breaks my heart to think what we could have had for a couple more decades.
Well, I know we're jumping ahead, and
go ahead.
I would say that because they'd all before John was murdered, they'd all signed off on Anthology. It was going to happen. Now, obviously, that put it back a number of years, but it was going to happen. They had resolved many of the business differences, and they were talking about spending some time together. Whether it would have, and I think inevitably that would have meant recording something, eventually, and perhaps even performing live. Who knows? But they'd got over a lot of the shit, and
I feel like by the time the '90s came around, man, I feel like by the time, like, I think after seeing their friend George pass away, something would have changed. You know, I can't imagine, because George was like the little brother. Even though they were very angry at the end, don't get me wrong, but I mean, even Paul and him, you know, made up.
They were incredibly close. They said it themselves. For many years, the four of them were just a unit because they were in the middle of this storm, and the storm was just beginning with the "Please Me" stuff. It was the very, very first taste of it. There was no madness yet in February or March or April. But it was going to happen.
Oh, God, man.
But yeah, Julian was born, which makes him, I mean, he's not that much. He's like a month or so younger than me.
Julian?
Yeah, if he was born in 63.
Yeah.
I was born in February 63, so.
You don't look at Lottie.
I don't. I look even worse.
Let me read this real quick because it's hard. You got to see it on. I got to go to YouTube and look at it. But MrGrantGregory, 12 months at the fork level, which I know he's more than 12 months. But 12 months a fork will fork me. Oh wow! I got more characters left. So make sure you don't go full Yoko. Only way to stop that, hit that sub button. I love you, man. I miss you. I feel like I haven't.
Never go full Yoko. Yeah, get on the show, Grant. Come on.
I feel like I missed you.
Don't leave us hanging here. Get in the stream.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a history class, and I freaking
talk about the fact that the Beatles are just about to arrive in Australia for their first ever tour.
Yeah.
Because they're so far behind.
They're almost there. They're almost there. Kids are lining up. So right after Julian's born on the 11th, From Me to You and Thank You Girl is released.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then right after that on the 18th, the Beatles play the BBC Light Program concert Swinging Sound 63 at the Royal Albert Hall in London, which to me is like, that must have been to them like, we've made it.
I think they must have
Carnegie,
felt
right?
Like, because that's the Royal Albert Hall to this day is like legendary. It's like Carnegie. Yeah, it's like if you're playing there, you know you're something or somebody, and it is a very, very special environment. I've been to a few gigs there. It's all red velvety stuff. You feel like you're in the middle of a uterus or something. It's all this red glow, and then it's got these huge mushroom things in this on the ceiling for the sound. They're all redirecting the sound. It's beautiful. All the boxes all the way up the wall. So I guess I wonder what the Royal Albert Hall felt about that, though, having like screaming teenagers.
Right, because it's very like, I mean, to me, I always considered it a very classy, I don't know, place
It
to
is.
be.
No, I mean, that's where you would get operas and the last night at the proms, all the classical stuff, which I've been to one of those nights, classical nights there, the orchestra. I can't remember what piece it was they were playing, but it was,
right.
But then again, I've been to rock stuff there as well. So, but it is a classy joint, and it's beautiful sound, very beautiful sound inside.
I mean, look at that. I know it's a little small for everybody who's looking, but man, wow, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think that's where they had the George Harrison tribute gig at the Royal Albert Hall.
I believe you're correct. Yep.
The one that you can get on the DVD and the Blu-ray. Beautiful. It was the perfect venue for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's so I would love to see something there. And you see like the organ pipes and stuff. I mean, that's just insane.
I thought you said organist. That's a Monty Python joke. But yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful venue. You see the things in the ceiling hanging down. The sort of mushrooms there to reflect the sound.
Man, mushrooms in there might be crazy.
Man, yeah, the colors in there.
Oh,
yeah.
cripe.
But they've all, I mean, Hendrix played there, all sorts of acts played there.
That does probably explain a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, by April 18th of 63, these guys have gone from releasing, one of their first hits, if you want to say that, to now playing at the Royal Albert Hall, to me, which would be like Carnegie Hall in the United States, where it's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? A lot of practice. Yeah. What's up, Grant?
Oh, he's
here.
Hi, we really didn't think you'd show up. I mean, thank you for being here. Don't you leave.
Okay, see you.
Glad you're here, buddy.
Yeah, we always like you just throwing in your little things here and there, buddy. It's always nice to have you. Also, if my kid's crying, I got to run, and at least you could talk to my buddy, that 70s rock fan over here.
Yeah, but I don't know anything about the Beatles.
That's fine. We're learning.
Well, that's because, as we were saying, they've not arrived in Australia yet.
Right. I don't even think you guys got Please Please Me yet released in Australia.
Elvis has barely made it there.
His show was great, though.
Yeah, but what has he done lately, though?
Well, funnily enough, death is always a good career move. It's certainly been worth it for Elvis over the years.
Well, it worked for Tupac. He sold 99% of his records after he died.
That's right. Yeah, it's a great career move. So From Me to You so the Please Please Me was a big hit. From Me to You was almost guaranteed to be a big hit.
Right.
Still follows the same pattern as the first two, though, with the harmonica on it and all that stuff. So it's still not anything particularly special. A couple little flourishes in it here and there.
Yep.
But what it did do was it's the start of what they did. It wasn't on the album.
Right.
So it wasn't on the Please Please Me album. So already they were taking tunes and saying this is only going to be a single. Because they'd already recorded the album, but here they were back in the studio again, like let's keep going. Right. The amount of stuff they put out in a year was just ridiculous.
Well, here's the album. So we got I'm trying to realize which release this is. I want to say this is the British because it's Parlophone.
That is the British first proper Beatles album, Please Please Me.
Yeah.
Not whatever they chopped it up to do. Now, it was released in this format in small labels in the US and in Canada. But most people wouldn't know this in the US for years because the songs were taken off this, chopped up, and put on other stuff.
Yeah. What blows my mind too is the different people that wrote other than Lennon and McCartney, because it's like their first album, so we understand. But like I was shocked looking through this because in my mind they wrote everything because they've written so much music together since they were kids. But like you said, they have A Taste of Honey and these other songs. Twist and Shout, of course, is a cover.
An Isley Brothers cover. So already the songs they were picking to cover, they were very smart, a lot of them. There was R&B stuff. There was soul stuff. Not so much the blues side of things. They were much more into the soul, R&B, and pop, like Burt Bacharach type pop stuff.
Right.
So that kind of slicker pop and soul sound appealed to the Beatles more. That was the stuff they were listening to. So they were heavily into that stuff. They were listening to things like the Isley Brothers.
Yep. And
they loved the girl groups in the US too. So you'd get a song like Boys, which is a cover of I don't know, not the Ronettes, but one of those groups.
Right.
But the funny thing was they didn't even change the lyrics. They just left it as talk about boys. You know, Ringo's singing this song about how much he likes boys.
I mean, in all fairness, that makes sense for Ringo.
It is Ringo. Well, and like, look at the picture. It's all the three guys, but Ringo has no ladies, but he's grabbing their, he's
got his hands on somebody's knee.
Ring, I can imagine the whole scenario when Ringo's like, I need to have my own song. And it's like, we've got the perfect song for you. Don't you worry, we got you. This is your moment to shine.
And then don't worry, we've got one about a submarine lined up for a couple of years.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. Look at what I love about this picture too is look at everybody. Everybody's smiling. Look at George. He has like psycho eyes on this poor girl.
He does. He's like, she's sitting on me lap and she's hurting me.
I haven't had a girl this heavy on me.
I'm dying for a smoke.
Yeah. This lady has a cigarette in her hand. God, the 60s were awesome.
There's a very actually. I think I recognize the girl on the right, but I'll have to look up who she is.
I thought I knew the girl in the middle.
Yeah, they're vaguely familiar in some way.
That's why I was wondering if they were a band or something.
They probably are singers, but British. I don't know who they are, but they were having the time of their lives. Come on,
that's great.
But this first album, which was, when was that actually released? Physically released?
Which one?
Please Please Me was.
That was back at the beginning of the year. Physically released. Please Please Me.
No, the album.
Well, they said Please Please Me was released in March 22nd, 1963. That's the album.
The album, okay.
Yep,
so
14
if we
songs,
go back
UK.
So let's go back and look at the tracks on that again. I know you had the picture.
Okay. All right, hold on.
If you don't mind.
Not at all. Because they said it. So these are the 14 tracks.
So I'm assuming Apple had this before they went into like computers and stuff. So it's got the Apple symbol down the bottom corner.
Yeah, there was an infamous lawsuit where the Beatles Apple sued Steve Jobs' Apple. Eventually, there was a settlement out of court, and I don't think the Beatles got anything out of it. Like that, they eventually came to an agreement. So the Beatles Apple came well before the Steve Jobs Apple. Because Apple wouldn't have been on this in the day, it would have just said Parlophone, which is EMI, an EMI label. And
feels like EMI's been around since music was invented.
They were like, I don't know, 1910s, 1920s in the UK, like way back. And eventually bought Capitol and various other labels. But I just wanted to talk about the actual songs. So what a lead off for your first album. You're muted, Scott. You're muted.
And myself. One of my favorite songs at number one. I saw her standing there.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just a killer lead off track.
Think about that as a lead off track with a count in. Like bam, man, that is so cool. That is so cool.
And it's raw. It's one of their best rockers, and it's right out the gate. And there was something that not a lot of bands were doing in 1962 in Britain. No. In the charts was songs like that.
Right.
They were trying to make rock and roll go away and go back to sort of crooners and whatever. And the Beatles said, okay, we've got lots of stuff on this album. Some of it's quite laid back. We're going to kick off with this song, which Paul it's got one of Paul's greatest best screams on it as well. But just I love the original lyrics though, which they changed, which was, she was just 17, not a beauty queen.
Yes, right.
So not exactly complimentary.
I thought it was if you know what I mean. Oh, there you go.
And they changed it. If they changed it because they thought, well, maybe we shouldn't be saying she's not that good looking.
Yeah, right.
Because she's not exactly a beauty queen was the original.
Now but now that they should probably change it again because right now it's like you're a creeper, dude. You're like in your 20s. But like I saw her standing there. To me, sounds like future Beatles.
It does. It's probably you could have put that on an album 2 years later, and it would
Right.
still have sounded good.
Right, exactly.
Some of the stuff in here does age. The covers, some of the covers, the cover
Right.
versions,
Right.
like Chains and Anna. I mean, you not
None of their
necessarily,
songs.
not necessarily tracks. You're gonna revisit a million times.
Right.
Great vocals. The
Right.
vocals are fantastic across all of these.
Right.
Some of the songs are a little bit more dated, but you've also got a cover like "Baby It's You," which to me is still one of my favorite Beatles covers.
Right.
That they covered songs,
And I love the original too.
Yeah.
I love the original.
Highlights.
That's another girls band, right? Baby,
Yeah,
it's you.
It highlights the backing vocals that they had. The three, the John, Paul, and George. The harmonies and the backing vocals. The Shirelles was the original.
I didn't know this. The count-in was taken from a different song.
Yeah,
and
it
mixed
could have
in.
been. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. Liam, you know your shit, and your
Yeah.
chin does too.
It works though.
Oh, thanks for being here. I was
It
wondering
works.
where you were. Yeah, it works. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but so one thing that you would say on a lot of this album, and it was recorded, and most of it was recorded in like a day.
Okay.
They did it in 12 hours or something.
Yeah.
They did a few overdubs later, but or
Well,
tweaks.
they had 4 of the songs done, and the rest of the remaining 10 were done on the 11th of February.
And they just went and did them
Jeez.
in this so the first Beatles album, you could say it was recorded in 12 hours.
Easily.
And some of these are one take. And Twist and Shout they left to the end because of John's vocal being so strong on it.
Right.
They
He
didn't think
screw up his voice.
Yeah, they thought if we do too much of that, it's going to kill him. And
Right.
they did 2 takes in the end of that. I think they ended up just using the first take. So basically, they just played it, and it would have shredded his voice because it's still Twist and Shout is still one of the greatest rock vocals ever. Just the way the lead, but also the layered backing harmonies jumping up on top of each other as they reach the end of the note. They go back to the next one. And,
It's unbelievable. But look at them. We got so the count-in with I Saw Her Standing There. Misery. Anna, Go to Him. Chains.
Well, that Chains was an original. That's also a cover.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
Goffin King.
From the Cookies. So I think, or that maybe that's the version that I know.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But interestingly, you see the construction of their formula for live playing. 2 George vocals and 1 Ringo, and then the rest John and Paul alternating.
Oh, I'll have to check that out, Liam.
Yeah.
Thank you. So then you got Boys.
I just love Boys.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
Ringo, it's a girl song.
You don't even change it a
I
bit.
want to do it. I want to do it.
I'm talking about boys, but he sings it so enthusiastically.
Yes, he does.
I don't think they cared because
No.
that wouldn't have been a thing then. They wouldn't have cared.
I think they just they respected the songs. So like to them it was like, why should we change it to suit, us being men singing it? We're singing it as a cover. It's a cover.
Yeah, I don't think it would even have entered their minds to even think about it. It's just we love this song, we're
Right.
gonna do it. And I do love the
we like
backing.
ladies.
I love the backing vocals in it. The bab shoo up, bab shoo up. It's just so infectious. And live, it would have been fantastic. I mean, you see Ringo, the black and white film of him playing away and singing it like this. He's so happy. He's so happy.
It's so crazy that the longest song is 2 minutes and 54 seconds.
Oh, I know. They got tired. See, people weren't as fit then. They got tired.
Yeah,
Any song
all
over
cigarettes.
It makes sense. The reason why it took, they were able to do most of it in a day.
Yeah.
Right. But if you think of like one of their most popular or well-known songs, at least, is "Please Please Me," and that's a 2-minute song on the dot.
Yeah, on
That's
the dot.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, they were probably
Gotta
paying
play it for the radio,
they're
guys.
paying
It's gotta
for
be beat.
paying for studio time by the second.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's. I mean, no, I don't think anyone would claim it's one of the greatest albums ever made in retrospect in rock
Right.
history,
Right.
but it's certainly one of the best and most important debut albums by any act.
Hands down.
Hey,
Hands
and
down.
if you've got 20 minutes to listen to an entire album, this is your one.
This
That's
is
your one.
This is your album.
And then if you really want to listen to it backwards, because that's the real album, if you listen to it backwards.
Oh, is this?
I'm just kidding.
You fucked me up there. So you got Please Please Me, going into Love Me Do, going into P.S. I Love You, and then right into Baby It's You.
Sha-la-la-la-la-la. And there's actually a great version that they did that really nicely live. But there's the BBC sessions version of that song, where they did multiple BBC radio sessions, which were great for them because they could play it live, but they didn't have all the screaming audience.
Right.
And that's one of the best BBC ones they did. Baby It's You.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, the vocals, the Beatles. There was a bunch of albums released a few years ago, the complete Beatles BBC recordings, and they did for all the various sessions they did live at the BBC. That one is one of the best tracks, Baby It's You.
Dude, I'm telling you, recently I've been going down the rabbit holes of the Beatles and Elvis on YouTube, just watching live concerts and live performances. Elvis 71, 72, like just high as a kite, but like still killing it. And the Beatles just high as kites, but like,
this stuff is if you've not heard these were about, I don't know, these must be getting on for 15 or 20 years old now.
Hold on, let me blow it up.
The Beatles at the BBC, live at the BBC.
Okay.
Lots of really interesting stuff, and lots of stuff on here you won't hear anywhere else. Covers that they didn't do in their records, a couple of originals that they gave to other people, just some weird stuff, and a lot of rock and roll covers. Country stuff. They did all sorts on these BBC sessions to fill time. But the version,
that's a pretty cool thing. I think I fall into the category of a lot of people like, you like the Beatles? Like, yeah, but we've only ever heard the singles. We've never really sat down and listened to an album.
Yeah,
the closest album that we've listened to is like one or something that has all the greatest hits.
Yeah, and they did a version. This is volume 2 of the Beatles at the BBC. And I love this photograph because it's color for once.
Whoa,
that's a really nice picture of them.
Those guys are slick, man.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the BBC, in their infinite wisdom, unlike the things like they didn't junk it like they did all the Doctor Who's and whatever.
Or record over it. Yeah. Stupid idiots. It's funny, Grant, you said that, because it's like, sit down and listen to Revolver from start to finish. Sit down and listen to the White Album. Like, there's certain albums that are made for you to listen all the way through. And when we hear the singles from them, the singles are great, don't get me wrong, but I feel like, and maybe it was the acid and the mushrooms at the time when I was a kid, but it took you on a journey, like Pink Floyd did. It took you on a journey, and it's.
I went down the rabbit hole, I think it was last year. I started listening to, because I never listened to any of Michael Jackson's albums. I only ever listened to just the singles. And I realized that that's some of his weakest work. It's so weird to think that there's so, like, you pick any random album and just pick any random song, and it's probably better than the best single on that album. Like, it's insane how good that sort of stuff was. And I think that's a big part about it, especially the older music that's always going to be lost, is the fact that unless it was a big, even one of their, their big singles, there's still a lot of people that have never heard of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just for someone who's essentially normal, what do you think their best non-single, like just an album song is from the Beatles in this era?
From 63,
or
could we go a little like 64, 65?
Yeah, give or take 10 years sort of thing,
Okay, so their whole career, you're saying?
Well, yeah, almost their whole career.
I think I would pick, I could think off the top of my head, first one I would pick is And Your Bird Can Sing, which I love and I also love the anthology version, which is even janglier. Although they're all stoned, so when they start laughing halfway through, and it ruins the take.
Yeah.
But that jangly guitar sound. The Night Before from Help, I think The Night Before is on Help. That's a great track, great album track.
Are you asking any song or random songs that someone wouldn't know?
I'm saying the non-single.
Just any non-album, non-single. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, let's just say, because what I know of the Beatles is their number one hits and the stuff that was played on the radio, because no one had any of the albums or anything like that. So I don't know, their discography, and that's what I was just like, well, obviously you two guys know them quite well, and it'd be interesting for me to hear a song that you would suggest is a great song to listen to.
Well, there's two
for the first time.
Well, actually, I could pick four, and I'm only going to go up to 1965 or 6. I'll leave the later ones because there's tons of those that are really good. So I'll say "And Your Bird Can Sing," "The Night Before," "Rain."
Rain is a great song.
And there was another one. Oh yeah, "Tomorrow Never Knows."
Tomorrow Never. Yep. I mean, because see, there's songs. Was "Across the Universe" released as a single?
It was released as a single.
Okay, so I don't know what was released as a single and what wasn't.
I mean, let's face it. Just about somewhere in the world, every single track was probably released as a single somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'm saying what they did. Something.
What about the continuing story of Bungalow Bill?
It's okay.
It's a fun song. It's a fun song.
Well, I've given 4 that I think are great examples off the top of my head. I think if I was to give a 5th, it would be the song "When I Get Home," which is on Hard Day's Night, I think.
Oh, it could be. You're killing me right now.
So that's 5. I've given 5.
Was the Fool on the Hill a single? Because that's a great song.
No, it's not. It probably wasn't. It was on an EP, but let's say it wasn't.
Yeah, because it was on Magical Mystery Tour. I know that much.
Sorry, what was the name of that one, Scott?
The Fool on the Hill, You Son of a Bitch.
No, I don't remember the "You Son of a Bitch" part.
No, I know what he's doing.
There ain't no messing with the son of a bitch.
Yeah.
No, I'm literally typing it into YouTube so I can add it to the playlist for later.
So did you get mine? Did you get the mine grant that I mentioned?
Yeah, I've got those. Right. I've got "And Your Bird Can Sing," "The Night Before," "Rain," "Tomorrow Never Knows," "When I Get Home," and "The Fool on the Hill," and "You Son of a Bitch."
Yeah, "You Son of a Bitch." I see. I don't know what "Good Day Sunshine" off of "Revolver" is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, it's a good one. "Got to Get You Into My Life," which may have been a single in America that wasn't in the UK.
Okay, I do know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know "Good Day Sunshine"?
No.
Right, okay, that's a great one.
I mean, I'll stick at 5. I've given 5. So.
Yeah, I'm trying.
They were just off the top of my head, though.
Yeah, you're good, dude. I had to really think about it because
What a nerd.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Nerddom is awesome.
And I kind of stuck to everything before. I kind of ended at the Revolver era.
What about "Little Child"?
"Little Child's" a nice track. I mean, there's some good B-sides. Some good B-sides that never ended up in anything.
"Little Child" I think was on with the Beatles. That was their second album this year, so in '63. So I think that was a good one to pull.
I think if I was to say a song they didn't write, but John sang it magnificently, would be "You Really Got a Hold on Me."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Their cover of... Yeah.
Was "The Little Child" the one that those... Give me a second.
It's all right, man. She can cough.
"Little Child" end up being covered by somebody like Billy J. Kramer or one of these Liverpool guys.
Yeah, Little Child was the one that Untoward Boys group that starts with N, Nambla or whatever it was called, tried to appropriate as their song. Jesus. I think that was that one because it was about dancing with a child or something.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Is that one?
It could be. Yeah, could be.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so I've given a few there, Grant, that I think are worth listening to that probably are not heard that often.
Yeah, I'm adding them to my YouTube music playlist.
Yeah, because they're not on the radio much. They weren't on hits compilations because they weren't really singles. But those ones are well worth listening to.
Okay, so I've got 2 choices. I've got the remastered, which apparently came out in 2009, and it just says BBC version.
The BBC ones will be the ones I was showing, which are not the original album versions. You want to go for the remastered. The BBC ones are BBC sessions, and they sound very different from the recorded releases. Yeah.
Sweet.
I think you should listen to the expert that's telling you. He or she is telling you.
Yeah. She's telling me which one to
She's
get.
telling
I'm
you,
getting
yeah.
it, darling. It's all right. I've got it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many great Beatles tracks on their albums. It's extremely difficult to just focus in on one or two, you know. But if we had a week, I would talk about them all. Yeah.
I don't have a week to talk about them, unfortunately.
No. Well, why
And that
not?
being said, if I did have a week, I'd probably forget most of the stuff after the third day. It's not going to be on the test, is it?
There will be no test. It's going to be an open book. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of another one that I would pick. It depends. I mean, are you interested in stuff that they covered but they didn't write? Because there's some great cover versions they did, like Kansas City.
Well, I think some of the songs that I really like from the Beatles were covers or have been covered. Like there was a lot of songs like like the first one, I Saw a Destiny. I'd only ever heard the covers of it until I was, an adult, and then I realized it was a Beatles one, and then I heard that one.
Yeah.
Because it was, in the 80s there was a pop dance sort of version of it.
Sure. I mean, there's just been so many versions of these over the decades, but yeah, they did some fantastic rock and roll covers. One of them would be Kansas City. Kansas City. Gotta take my baby home. Yeah. Just one of Paul's best vocals on anything. Kansas City, hey, hey, my. So listen to that one.
What about their cover of Please Mr. Postman?
Okay, I've actually heard that one as well.
Okay.
But like growing up, like we had George Harrison stuff, so I knew his stuff post Beatles, and I was obsessed with. Got My Mind Set on You as a kid. I absolutely loved that song. I used to drive my mum crazy with that all the time.
Dude, I love the video.
It's a great record.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
such a good video.
He occasionally felt the need to do something good. He didn't really care for a number of years, and then he would pop out with Cloud9, which was a great.
Yeah,
album,
man, he was such a peculiar solo artist. Because some of my favorite Beatles songs are Harrison songs. George I thought became an excellent writer. Something is one of my favorite songs. You know?
Well, there's a song for Grant to listen to, is Taxman.
Oh, Taxman is great. I thought that would have been a single.
Yeah. So write that one down, Grant. Taxman.
First song off of Revolver.
Yeah.
Right?
Lead off track on Revolver. And
he's
another one with the counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
One of the more famous ones.
Added it to me list.
Yeah. Now, the fascinating thing about that song is that George doesn't play the solo in the middle. It's Paul.
That's Paul.
That blistering guitar solo in the middle is played by Paul.
I mean, Paul kind of took over the bass because they needed a bass player. He was a guitarist.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Liam Neeson's chin was talking about that count in. I think that count in might have been taken from not at the beginning of the actual recording. They did it and then added it.
Yeah. I mean, by that time they were chopping stuff up and sticking it here, there, and everywhere. So, but yeah, Paul's solo on Taxman is one of the best recorded solos ever. And they never said who did it at the time. It was only years later that they revealed it was Paul, not George, that played it. Why, I don't know. But because George, it was a bit rougher than a lot of George's solos. He was like the sweeter slide stuff, and it's sort of Paul just kind of must have just picked the thing up and
just went nuts on it. Happy birthday, Ruben, if it's your birthday today.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Ruben, mate. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, same here,
you're
brother.
Feeling all right, mate.
Same here.
So, so there's a bunch of suggestions for you, Grant. But as we work through the albums in future weeks, we'll be picking out little tracks on this album. It is a brilliant album, but you got to think the book ending of it by the two great rockers is just perfect positioning on the
Twist
album.
And shout. Oh,
starting with a Paul rocker and ending with a John led rocker at the end. Just
what kills me. Okay, so and this was released, and then you get, and a few months later you get their second album. But what kills me is somewhere in September, and I forget the exact date. I want to say it's like September. There it is, September 6th. They released the Beatles hits, which are just a couple of these songs again. Just like it's like two A's, two B's. Like it makes no sense to me why they do it. Also, on August 3rd, Yoko Ono and Anthony Cox have a baby. I didn't know she had a child before.
Oh yeah, Yoko is not. She had a husband and
Yeah.
kid long before John, and she's had a husband after John died. She's been married again for a long time. I mean,
I did not
she's-
know that
yeah.
about her.
No, the Beatles hits was an EP, so that's I like EPs were a thing then. Extended
Yeah.
plays, 4 tracks.
4 tracks, right?
I've got quite a few of these. They always had great picture covers, picture sleeves. They were forever not just the chopping stuff up for the American market. They would do it in the British market too. They'd say, "Oh, here's 4 tracks we can put in an EP."
Yep.
And it'll have a couple of singles that have been out and maybe one from the album,
Yep.
kind of thing, or the B-sides. And it was just another way to get, and we'll put a different picture on the cover, so it gives people a chance to buy our product again. That one, the Beatles Hits EP, was released in Australia and New Zealand. So I
Last
think that
month,
one's-
right?
Yeah, last month. I think it's just hitting the stores there now.
I know next month.
Oh, next
So,
month, right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Um,
So,
So,
another
yeah.
crazy moment.
Yoko
Oh, I'm
plays.
sorry.
So I was going to say Yoko does. Just to finish that, she plays the grieving widow very well, but she's been married for about 40 years since. So,
I didn't know that, dude.
yeah.
That guy stays out. of the
I
limelight.
don't care if she goes on that grift as long as she doesn't start singing in airports again. I'll
Oh
be
my
happy.
god, she is terrible. So
Well, I think
go
she
ahead.
was. She was getting. Sorry, mate. I didn't. Sorry, Scott. I was trying to make a joke. I was
do
going to say.
not say sorry.
She does play a very important role in the soundproofing industry, though.
Yeah, and the
you know,
cat
they-
killing industry.
They bring her.
That's true.
They bring her in to test their product.
Yeah, or maybe the cat mating industry.
Well, I
I
mean,
really- I can't stand her voice.
it proves one thing: musical talent definitely is not sexually transmitted. We know that. We know that for a fact.
October 13th, 1963. One of the biggest dates in Beatle history.
Oh yeah.
They perform their performance on ITV's weekly television musical variety show Val Parnell's Sunday Night at the London Palladium,
So
which launches Beatles Mania.
Yes. Think the similar, not quite as big an impact, but similar to
Ed
appearing
Sullivan?
on Ed Sullivan. It's there was one on ITV, it was that one, and then the BBC had the Royal Variety Performance thing, those were the big ones that made like millions and millions of people would watch those.
First time George ever smiled in public, and then all of a sudden now they're global superstars. Coincidence? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. But yeah, so appearing on London night, Sunday night at the London Palladium was a big deal, and the crowds went mental because She Loves You was out by then.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we'd already had, for me to you had been a hit, and then
Yep.
She Loves You is released in September,
Right.
and that's the one that really ignites everything. The other 3 singles were kind of good, but
Yeah.
She Loves You was something completely new.
Yeah, She Loves You was
Yeah,
released
yeah.
in August
Yeah.
23rd, and She Loves You in the U.S. was released in September 16th. And this October, I mean, it changed everything. And then the Beatles #1 is released November 1st, which is another EP.
Yeah. And then only 6 months on the heels of this album, in November, they
Yep.
released their second album.
Which one of their
albums in 1
coolest
year.
photo, like what a cool cover too, with them like all shadowed.
So there's a Robert Freeman, those photographs in the shadow, half
Yeah.
shadow. Although some people claimed he took that from the Astrid Kircher photographs from Hamburg, of which I've got a couple of posters up on the
You know
wall.
what? I
But
wouldn't doubt that, man.
yeah, the half shadow thing, and then that was the image that I think got used on one of their first North American release, which I think they called Introducing the Beatles.
Yes.
So they used that image, but this is the proper British album with the Beatles, album number 2. And this included. Well, it's got some interesting tracks in it, but again, it doesn't have some of the singles on it. So you've got "She Loves You" is a huge hit,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not on here. It's not
Okay,
on the album.
that I didn't realize. Is it on the US version?
It was, yeah. They
Okay, I was gonna
bastardized everything and put them on the US version. But "She Loves You" and "I Want to Hold Your Hand" are not on this album.
Oh, thanks, mate. Oh, sorry, you talk about the song. Never mind.
Yeah, "I Want to Hold Your Gland."
And you know what's on it though? Roll Over Beethoven.
Beethoven, yeah. Without the da 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 da.
Yeah.
That was yellow. But so they were releasing these magnificent singles,
But they didn't put it on.
and
there.
they didn't put them on the album.
Wow,
I
I
mean,
didn't. Wow,
Now
that's
that would
crazy.
be unheard of. I mean, "She Loves You" was the big one that changed their sound, because it was
Right,
something different from the other three singles they'd had out.
right.
It was just everything about it was fresher, faster, more modern. It was new. It was a step forward, and from then on, it was all step forwards.
Yeah, and
Never repeating the sound, always trying to move forward.
right before they released that in November, and I wanted to ask you about this because you might know a little bit more. The Beatles played November 4th. The Beatles played the Royal Command performance at the Prince of Wales Theatre, where the Queen Mother, Princess Margaret, and Lord Snowdon were all in. Like that's a very old theater. It's very that's a royal theater, isn't it?
Yeah, and they had these Royal Command performances every year, where basically acts were summoned to play for either the Queen or the Queen Mother, or in this case, it was the Queen Mother. They did the Queen next year.
Let's be clear about one thing. The Queen Mother would have got down with the Beatles, hands down. She was a very groovy lady.
She
I
was
think
groovy.
she could twist and shout.
Hell yeah, man.
That's what Shake It Up Baby's about, you know.
I think Margaret would have.
Margaret she seemed like a cool chick.
She would have been into it.
Yeah,
for
she
sure.
seemed like a party.
I've got to head off, gentlemen.
Okay, brother.
Yeah.
So
well, you've been
We're
given
almost
your
done
homework.
anyways, so thank you for being here.
It's giving me something to listen to when I go to work tonight. So
Cool. Good stuff, mate. Thanks
I'll have
for
to put it on
joining us.
repeat because it's only like 8 minutes worth of songs for those 12. But yeah,
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
man.
Quantity over quality. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Take care,
Well,
my
never
brother.
mind the quality, feel the width.
All right. Have a good
Have
one.
a good night.
Yes,
Cheers, mate.
Swan label was the release
The
in the US.
Swan.
Yeah,
This Capitol still said, no, this sound means nothing in America.
that's so
No one
crazy.
will like this. And "She Loves You" is a magnificent slice of 7-inch vinyl.
That's so crazy.
I mean, the way it opens with the chorus, first of all.
Right.
There's a quick drum roll, and then the fantastic three-headed monster vocals.
Yeah, that
And
always
they
blew my mind. It opened with the the chorus.
Yeah. And then
Love like that.
The assault of those vocals.
Yeah.
Just, and then the little
Yep.
guitar fill. So that's where George excelled. He didn't want to do long solos. He did these little fills that just accentuated the lyrics. That was
Yep.
his genius, you know. But then, so "She Loves You," massive hit for God knows how many weeks in Britain. That was at number one, like 16 weeks, some ridiculous amount. They were having number one hits, and the next single would come out, and the first one was still at number one.
Right.
It was that kind of thing. They just overlapped all the time.
Right. So out of the greatest 500 songs of all time, Rolling Stone ranked "She Loves You" number 64.
Yeah.
I think I actually want to think that's a little higher, but personally, there's a lot of rock and roll songs out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of songs. I think its impact at the time is hard for us as I mean, I was only a baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for us to estimate. I think the impact at the time would be like a shiver down the spine of a teenager that heard it.
Yeah.
For the first time. It would be, what is
it just
that?
changed and it was one of those visceral things where like the women, like girls and guys, like you hear that chorus like just come at you, and it was like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah, and it's so upbeat, infectious, positive. Their sound was very positive then. All their songs are extremely positive. They're also trying to write, as John would say, they're trying to write things that are like she loves you. They're writing in the third person about other people rather than, oh, I love you, do you love me, boy girl thing. They were trying to write little abstract stories almost, albeit in a primitive way. But I would defy anybody to go back and look at music released in any country in 1963 that sounded anything like She Loves You.
Oh, nothing.
By any act.
Everything was like, and I'm not saying the right year because it's the 50s probably, but it's like, oh, Donna. Like that's what you had.
Yeah,
you had those kind of like ballady cheese, and these guys just came at you.
But it was, I think.
But it was a love song.
Grant mentioned mod or modern. They actually were sounding quite mod. It was modern. It was a modern sound. Liam may be right actually, because there was a lot. Everything was recorded for mono.
Yes, but it's coming.
Mixed for mono. They maybe did a stereo mix at the very end of recording an album just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a priority.
Right.
It's possible one or two of the stereo mixes have just never survived or been found.
I just know that George Martin's son is talking about doing all the mono and turning them all to stereo with the Peter Jackson.
They've had a bunch of attempts in the past, but now to use that,
he's done a way better job than anybody has.
But the original, you can get virtually all Beatles stuff with the original stereo mixes, which were done as an afterthought in a couple of hours, because mono was key, but one or two of them just didn't survive. I think
right.
Neeson's Chin is right. That may be one of the ones that there just is no true original stereo mix.
No. He's going to use the software.
But it didn't matter because everybody listened to things. Most kids listen to stuff on the radio or portable record players with one speaker.
Yep.
So it was mixed to sound great on the radio.
Right. So I know restoring the audio of the Beatles Get Back, that was one of the things he created that software to be able to pull everybody's voices.
And that's incredible. Yeah.
Unbelievable what he did. And now George Martin's son is doing it. Thank God it's not Phil Spector's son because it'd be overdone. If he had one, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
He was a weird cat anyways. But we're almost done with the year. So it's crazy because I Want to Hold Your Hand. This boy is released November 29th in the UK.
And again, not on the album.
Not on the album. That blows my mind, man. But like I know at least with us Americans, the first song is I Want to Hold Your Hand in Meet the Beatles.
Well, this is where they started to get the attention of somebody in Capital.
Yep.
And to be fair, you mentioned his television show area. My mind's just gone blank. Ed Sullivan. Ed Sullivan had traveled to Britain later in '63 and he saw Beatlemania himself and he went, what is this? Who are these guys?
Right.
So he started talking about getting them on his show, even though they hadn't had a hit yet in America. So the threads started to pull together. But that single was recorded in such a way as they felt they could appeal to this mystical American market that they hadn't yet got the sound right for.
Right.
So they were trying a different sound with I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Well, let me tell you this. Is going to be the next year, 1964 coming up, and we're going to end it here because 1964, it's Beatlemania in America and the world. Yeah. So that will be fun to do.
63 was the year that they conquered Britain and most of Europe and a lot of the British Commonwealth. Actually, to be fair, She Loves You was a hit in Canada and a big hit in Canada in '63. So they just because of the British connection, they got it a little bit earlier. They started to get it there before the Ed Sullivan thing. So,
well, dude, again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Always fun. I wish I could start even a little bit earlier because I know it would be easier for you. But it's hard. My wife works late.
I know it's tough to fit anything in YouTube.
But I'm glad we're doing it, man. I'm glad it's you and Pops. Pops is another YouTuber that I love to stream. It's just schedules are hard, so I'm glad
I
we
know.
have this moment on Thursdays.
We'll
man.
do this, but we'll do other things, mate.
Yes,
Trust
we
me.
will. Yes, we
are
will.
gonna do other stuff.
So I want to thank you guys. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. Find him on Twitter. Let him know the channel, even though it's that 70s Rock Fan.
That 70s Rock Fan. I don't know if I was to hang on. Angon. That's not fab. It's a fab channel. It's a 952 subscribers today. I'm going to paste the channel link in the private chat.
Yes, and I will share it.
I'll let you share it. We got some good stuff coming up though, because I do a show as well on Pop Culture Minefield, and I've got my own channel. I've got a series of shows kicking off next Tuesday on Pop Culture Minefield with these guys called the Rock and Roll Rowdies and their road crew from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. These guys were in at the start. They've been with all the big bands and big acts, and they're going to come on my shows and they're going to talk about these experiences. So those are going to be a lot of fun.
Dude,
I'm not kidding when I say these guys have toured with or hung out with some of the biggest acts in the world, the classic rock world.
Awesome.
So starting on Pop Culture Minefield channel on Tuesday morning is the first of those shows. And then there'll be a series of both on PCM and on my own channel. Rock and Roll Rowdies, these guys are just, I've been talking to them on the phone or whatever, and they've seen the resumes, you name it, they've worked with them.
That's
and
amazing.
Been friends with them and are friends with these guys.
That's amazing. So talking about Pop Culture Minefield, this Saturday, Jerry will be on or Gary. It always looks like Jerry to me.
Backdoor Gary.
But it's Gary.
Gary
will be on the show. And also Max Von Priestley, MVP. So we're going to have two guests this Saturday. So please, guys, make sure you check it out. And then hopefully a surprise guest for the 25th, but he probably won't show up. And then Popcast April 1st. And trying to get a couple, I'm trying to get like 3 of the average size like us, and then maybe one bigger YouTuber a month. So that's what we're trying to do for Saturday's show. But please, guys, come back next week. Check us out here. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been great fun.
I will go out with my AI members list. Thank you to all the members. Thank you to the guys in the chat. You guys make it a lot of fun with the knowledge you have, and we will see you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I got to switch it to the dump because I don't have it here. I'll have to have it saved here. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.
Monkey Jeebus, Ben Henniger, Darren Gatewood, Matt W. Brent Sanders, Forbidden Ruin, Johnny Bowie, S. Small Time Republic, Glinser, Micah Wolf, Biggles _Mets, McKinney Draws, Sean Estep Pops, Zach's Awesome One, Mr. Grant Gregory, Nagurdnal, Soul Assassin, One Man Show, The Lovely Sherry, Keely Chow, Abomination, AJ, Eric K, Tina Bojan, Katina Martin, Urabarmi, Sultan, Alpha Him, The Ginger